So in this video, we're going to talk about due dates, how to manage them, how to control them, and everything else associated with due dates. So you can see here, we're looking at a workflow for publishing a new podcast episode on February 24th of 22. And this workflow, as you can see, has many, many steps in it. We've got, 64 steps. And so now let's talk about how we would manage due dates. So due dates for the entire workflow can be managed here. So what that means is this whole workflow and every step in this workflow needs to be completed by, say, the 20th. And you could change the time if you want, but I'm not going to bother. There we go. Now, that's the whole workflow, but there are all these steps in the workflow, and these steps can be given individual due dates. For example, you can see that step 1 is due February the 26th. Now you can go ahead and change that at this particular step. And let's say we'll make this due on, February 22nd. Click Save. So what is the use case? Why do the steps have different due dates than the overall workflow? And the reason for that is very simple. In a longer workflow, like producing a podcast episode, where in our case, there would be 4 or 5 different people involved in the production of every single episode. And so different people are responsible for different sections. You need to have due dates to make sure that things get done in the right order. Like obviously you can't edit the episode until the episode is recorded. You can't publish the episode until the episode is edited. So it is your way of essentially being able to, on the fly at the workflow level, make whatever changes that you would like to the due dates. Now, you can also do that at the template level. For example, and the use case for this would be, let's just stick with the podcast episode. I know that every time I start a pre-interview for a podcast, then 3 days later this happens, and 7 days later this happens, and 4 days later this happens, and it's always the same people doing the same steps. So you can actually make all those assignments for due dates and task ownership at the template level, so that every time you run a workflow, you don't have to go manually do it all on the fly. So it's very simple. So we could say, overview of the funnel, we're going to make sure that Smog is in charge of that every single time. And we're going to say that it is due 0 days after the workflow is run. In other words, it's due the day the workflow is run. And then let's go down to, say, the LinkedIn connection. And we're going to say that that is going to be done by Frodo Baggins every single time. And it is going to be due, we can make it hours, months, weeks, whatever. We'll just say 2 days after every single time. So you could literally go through your entire template, make all the assignments, and then whenever you're running a workflow for a new podcast episode, you don't have to go and manually do all that stuff again. To see what that looks like, we're going to update all the active workflows. You can see Flowster, we've actually got 17 active podcast workflows. So Flowster is going to go ahead and update all of those right now with the changes that I made, which is a huge time saver for me. And you can see that these people are assigned to these particular steps. And then you can go and unassign any one of them at the workflow level without necessarily changing the template level. So let's say that, Smog is responsible for step 4 every single time, but he's on vacation for these 2 weeks. So for these 2 weeks, step 4 is actually not going to be done by Smog. It's going to be done by, Bilbo or whoever else on your team you would like. So that is how you can set the due date for the entire workflow, as well as the owner or owners for the entire workflow. And then you can go into individual steps and assign the responsibility for each of those steps to someone or someones on whatever ladder of due dates that you would like.